Hey, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about this little Russell here. Not there, but right here. This is a Russell knife, really old Russell, single bladed jack, and got a lot of snap. It's a little loose in the collar here. I'll have to work on that, but the scales, I believe, are Coca-Cola, but they're so dark, oiled with age. And yeah, if you'd like to hear a little bit about this knife, go ahead and check out the video.
I'm trying.
What are you doing?
I'm trying to kill this thing in my wrist. This ganglion cyst.
I don't think it's alive.
I'm not going to do this for you. I'm doing it for me.
Hey, welcome back to the Fortified Castle. Hi to all my viewers. Really appreciate y'all for dropping in. This is not really a special knife, but you know, it's an old knife and really representative of what knives used to be in the 1800s. And so we're going to look at this knife and talk a little bit about Russell knives. And we're talking about John Russell knives here. And a little bit about the company. Not a big history, but you know, as it relates to this knife, we'll talk about it. And so yeah, just a cool little jack. You know, I don't know about you guys, but um I don't think these type of knives are very popular with people. I mean, when you have knives like this, they just kind of overshadow this kind of old style knife. But uh, I appreciate them because it's you know, the way knives used to be made. Really, back in the 1800s, you've got carbon steel liners here, carbon steel bolster, carbon steel pins. Um, this is probably Coca-Cola. Could be ebony. I haven't really looked at this really close. Haven't tried to take anything off of this. Um, it could be ebony. So Russell did sell ebony, but I doubt it. I think this is probably Coca-Cola. Um, Scales on here, and just, you know, they're black because of age, but who knows. Anyhow, we're gonna let's talk about the knife first. All right. So what you have here is a 3 3/8 inch single bladed regular jack pattern, and neither ebony or Coca-Cola. I haven't looked at it. You can see the carbon steel pins on it and the carbon steel bolsters. Overall, this is a good construction on this knife. It's heavily worn. You can see right there, a lot of wear on it. This knife has been damaged, so it was bent in right about here, but it's surviving. So you can see the gap here and how it's wider and the wiggling blade. Need to tighten that up. So I'm going to try to do that. I think I'll be able to do it. If not, I'll just repin it. There is the Russell stamp right there. And Russell, you know, had about 8 different stamps that they used. And unfortunately, there's their arrow and R trademark. Unfortunately, Russell used them all very early. So John Russell started his company in 1834. However, he made mostly hunting knives and kitchen cutlery. So every now and then he would make a pocket knife. I have not seen an early John Russell pocket knife ever. Probably somebody has one in their collection. But in 1875, John Russell was almost broke. He sold the company, and the new owners put pocket knives into their lineup right away. So almost all the John Russell knives you see, regardless of the tang stamp on them, are gonna have can't date any further back than 1875. I think this knife probably dates to the 1880s, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Even though these knives are very hard to date. So one the big reason these knives are so hard to date, I have a few of them. They're all very plain, so they were very basic knives, and even their upper scale knives were not that fancy at all. And so it was just a basic knife that was being produced, a good knife. They were obviously this thing is held up, but and that creates problems in dating these. So when you produce a knife in 1880 that looks like this, and you produce the same knife in 1910 that looks like this, it's going to be hard to date on these. Some people will tell you this straight line Russell is the oldest tang stamp, but in the 1884 catalog that I have, it shows this along with the other tang stamps, the Diamond R tang stamp and other ones. So they used them all very early. And Goins, shows that there was only a couple of years between the inception of the tang stamps on these things. And so that's why they're so hard to date. One of the things I look at when I look at this knife is the height of the ridge here on the tang. You see that on the top square. It's very high up, and that's something that's back in the early to mid 1800s they didn't have pockets, so the height of the tang stamp tang was not even an issue. And as pockets became prevalent in the 1880s, this became a bigger issue because it was catching on people's pockets. And that's when you see manufacturers trying to do something about this. Some moved the tang stamp a little lower, some hid it, and that's what this knife is all about here. These are almost hidden and much more easily pocketable than this knife right here. But if you look at knives in the turn of the century, this is a Shatton Morgan. You can see the tang stamps a lot lower. So even though these knives are kind of similar in being basic, another thing, you have brass pins and brass liners in this knife. Yeah, brass pins and brass liners. And so for a long time, American manufacturers just believed steel was superior and didn't use brass liners. And after the turn of the century, they started using it. And so that's one way you can date these knives. Now, it's not 100% because you can find a lot of knives up to 1910 that had steel liners in them. But this is more telling because they were really trying to bring this notch down where your slip joint is cut into the knife here. And here's another one. What the heck is this? I think it's American Shear Company. Let me look at it real quick here. Oh. Yeah, American Shear. These are knives I can positively date to the early part. And even though this is kind of high, it's not as high as this knife right here. You can see it's a lot higher. And American Shear is another company that was, an old American company. And they just made a basic knife. And, kind of went out of business pretty early in the early 1900s. But if you look at this Waterville, this is a Waterville cutlery, another old American company. See how high the stamp is. And this is a knife I can positively date to being pre-1890. So, yeah, late 1800s, you're going to have these really high tangs up here. Knife manufacturers really weren't concerned about them. People used purses and leather pouches and things like that they put their knives in. They didn't have to put them into pockets. And then I'll show you just again, in the early 1900s, these are they're worried about them. They're trying to modify them and make them not stick up so much. So it's kind of an indication. Nothing's 100%, but yeah, I kind of feel like this knife probably dates to the 1880s on it. Really, really cool little knife. Good geometry on this knife. This would have had etching on it. It's got really good snap on it. Listen to that. Even though it's loose here, and I'll tighten that up. Yeah, nice little knife. Let's look at this Romance of Collecting by Dewey Ferguson. All of this is taken from catalogs, so this is all accurate information. And right there, you can see my knife. It's a number 250, I believe. 3 3/8 inches long. Looks exactly like it. Almost the same size right there. That is the knife. So that's pretty cool. That's it right there. But there's no date on these knives, which came out of a catalog. But you can kind of see how, they're just plain knives. These are some boys' knives. They just, really didn't make fancy knives. They did a couple different patterns. They actually had like 240. You see some square fancy bolsters there. Brass lines on these, lined. So these are probably more expensive, better knives. Got some equal ends there. Cattle knife. That's just, ivory handles. So they did make some better knives. All their patterns are just so basic. But really, that's how Russell made his money. He didn't try to compete with the English. My cat threw up on this. Ooh, that's why I have this on here. Spare you all. But yeah, I like having little knives like these. I got them from a New York knife company knife like this. I have one from Robeson. They just made these are simple, inexpensive knives for folks. You don't really see these anymore, do you? You see, you hardly see a jack, a two-bladed jack. It's all these or Barlow's or bigger knives. But you hardly see just a regular jack with a single blade on it right there. But I made a lot of these back in the day. So hope you enjoyed the video. Give you one good look at this before we pass on here. Nice piece of history here. All right. Thanks again for checking out the video. Really appreciate y'all.